All
Yeah,
right,
Cass.
everyone, let me get out of this box. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Drummer Nation. We're going to do it live today, and when we do that, anything may happen. So if we get bounced off, just look for us again. Most people see it in post anyway. It's on all of our platforms, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or all the podcast portals and so forth and so on. I'm not here alone. I have my trusty companions. First of all, my wonderful co-host Adam Nussbaum. How are you, Adam?
Staying on this side of the grass.
I told somebody the other day, every day I read the obituaries when I get up, and if I don't see my name, I have a nice breakfast. But the star of the show today, we have a guest, and it is Aaron Russell. How are you, Aaron? There he is in the middle.
Great. So great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to have you here. The topic is something near and dear to you, which is getting, keeping, maintaining, doing, performing a national touring company of a Broadway show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we
Anxious to
get to
talk
that,
about
though,
that.
give us
Yeah.
a little bit of your bio, just because I know you come from a show
Sure.
business family.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just say what an honor it is to be here. I've been a fan of Drummer Nation before I got to meet you guys, and looking at the amazing roster of drummers you guys have interviewed, I feel like I'm representing the working. That everyday jobbing down in the trenches drummer here, but I've been doing it for about 40 years, so I'll do my
I'm in that
best.
same boat too, brother. That's where I am. Work a day, sideman, hired
Yeah, yeah,
gun.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. As you mentioned, I did grow up in a very unique household. My mother was part of a comedy team. She's an actress, comedian, and I was modeled after Nichols and May or Stellar and Meir, kind of that 50s, 60s nightclub cabaret thing. And they never really broke out of the what we call in Pittsburgh the tri-state market. But they became pretty well known in there. And the gentleman who was in that duo ran a lot of cabaret and theater shows in Pittsburgh. And so from the age of 14, 15, I was just dropped in there and, had to learn it. And so I did that all through high school. And then went on to study percussion at West Virginia University. Got a degree in percussion, moved back to Pittsburgh, and started playing a lot of the sort of B plus theater things, the City Theater, Hartwood Acres, Summer Theater, Pittsburgh Playhouse, Pittsburgh Public Theater, the City Theater. My two teachers had the A and A plus work, of course, and then did that for a while. A couple of years, and had the opportunity. A buddy of mine had kind of left Pittsburgh a year before I was kind of getting ready to leave Pittsburgh, and he had gotten a tour, and it was one of these classic, showbiz stories. He walked into the management office as the contractor was literally slamming the phone down, saying, "How could you leave me without a drummer?" And so he said, "Hey, call my buddy. He's in Pittsburgh. He's looking to make a move." And so I got on that tour, and then about 10 to 12 years of touring ensued. I took to it well. I enjoyed it. People seemed to be happy with what I was doing, and I played 12, 13 shows in a row, just one after the other, and haven't been got a little burned out on it, but I haven't been picking up a little bit here and there as I've gotten older. But I spent a good solid 10, 12 years playing that kind of work. So I've been very, very, very blessed and very lucky.
Well, let me stop you there. I mean, it's more than luck. I
Yeah.
mean, luck is when you get that break when somebody
Yeah.
says, "I
Of
need a
course.
drummer
Of
now,"
course.
but you don't make a career out of luck. You know,
Right. Right.
you don't
Right. Of
stay on the
course.
gig. You don't get the next one and the next one. But are
Right.
you
Right.
mostly a drum set player or a percussionist? You said
Well,
percussion.
I came out of West Virginia with a degree in percussion, so I played timpani and mallets. But I always really gravitated toward the drum set, and as I've taken gigs, it's mostly become drum set. If somebody calls me and says, "Hey, we're going to be doing Hello Dolly, so you'll be playing drum set," and oh, by the way, maybe can you catch one or two timpani
Right.
notes and this ballad, this bell part on the ballad. Like if I can put a timpani and a set of bells next to the drum set, I can certainly do that. But it's 95% drum set at this point. Yeah.
And that's typical at a pit, right? There's a
Yeah,
drum set
typically
person.
in most pits, obviously it's a money thing if they can hire both people. You
Hmm.
know, you're going to have a separate, and most shows are written that way, of course. There's a separate drum book and a separate percussion book. Some shows, you know, like West Side Story or Pirates of Penzance will have two or three percussionists, you know,
Hmm.
depending on how heavy that section is. Yeah.
Now you mentioned a book. They're called book shows, right? And
Of course,
generally,
yeah.
with speaking, they open through this lengthy process of on the road and then previews, and they do a
Yeah,
Broadway thing, and then it's a hit, and it runs for years or whatever, and then it goes out to be played national touring companies, but then also
right.
eventually everybody can, your
Yeah.
local
Into the
productions, school
yeah, into
productions,
the regional theaters, the big regional theaters will do it, high schools will start doing it.
hmm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they run forever that way.
That's what the people who write them hope they will. You know, they buy
Hmm.
their summer homes with long
Hmm.
runs like that. Yeah, yeah.
And Adam, you're a
But Dick,
jazz player. Have you done any this kind of stuff, theater work?
I did my very first gigs in New York City was with a children's theater group called the
nice.
Merry Many Players.
That's great.
And that was basically piano, flute, and myself. And
Hmm.
I did that for a summer and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but it was nothing like what you're talking about. You know, that's a whole other zone.
Yeah.
And I remember we did it in the basement of the Beacon Hotel, right next to the Beacon Theater,
Okay.
and that was for one summer, and it was enjoyable for me. You know, I've always been somebody where I believe that every situation has its merit. And you can learn something from whatever the situation is. So
Hmm.
I was grateful to have a small amount of that experience. And my hat goes off to people that can do those 8 shows a week, 6 days, 8 shows
Yeah.
a week, 6 days a
Yeah.
week, and deal with what has to be done. You know, I
Yeah.
can hardly do the same thing once. So for somebody that can do that, my
Yeah.
hat goes off to them.
No,
And
you make an interesting point, Adam, in that that is when I'm going to be 60 next year, which I can't even believe. But when young people are coming out of school and asking me about this, I that is definitely something I say that and it's obviously something I enjoy about it, right? Some people find that monotonous. They start playing shows and they're like, whoa, I do not like playing the same thing every night. There's something comforting to me about that. And if you want to do this kind of work, you have to understand that that's going to be a thing, that you're given a book, we set the book over rehearsals, this is what we're going to do, and we do it every night. There's maybe a little room, a little wiggle room here and there, but that's something that if you want to do this kind of work, you've got to be okay with that.
yeah, you got to have your head in that space. And,
Yeah,
you get into the details of being able to do the best you can every night. And,
yeah,
you may not have a lot of this, but you can
yeah,
get deep into whatever this is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I've always believed that limitations open up possibilities for another kind of growth.
That's the way
yeah,
I look at it. Yeah, I've done a lot of theater work, but never a touring company, local and regional stuff. But it's a different set of challenges. I love the
yeah,
theater. I love being in a theater. I love the presentation of it. You're in the dressing room, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes places. And at the end of the show, you stand up and you turn off your stand light, and you stand up
yeah.
and walk away, and it's only 10:30.
Yeah, I that is something I also enjoy, not having to set up and break down every night. Which is an advantage. But
And now, one of the skills you
yeah,
mentioned, the different types of skills, I was interviewing Harvey Mason, and I asked him about he did the Academy Awards for like 20 something years, right? And the
yeah,
way that works is you have a piece of music that has five different maybe 15 seconds of five different pieces of music on it because you don't know who's going to win. Okay, so the winner is, and they announce it, and the band looks at the right one. The conductor gives a downbeat. I said, I got that, Harvey. Where's beat two? Because
yeah,
as we all know,
yeah.
that's what establishes the tempo, right? If I say
Right.
one,
Yeah,
I don't know, it could be anything. But when I one,
yeah,
two, we're in tempo.
yeah,
Where's two coming from? And he
yeah,
said,
yeah.
two was on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
that's
have to get into
absolutely
that
true.
conductor's head, right? Where you're,
One of the things also that I talk a lot about with young people coming up in this is that the relationship that you have as the drummer with the conductor is very one-on-one. It's very personal. And, all due respect to third trumpet players and fourth cello players, right? They have a different relationship. If anything goes sideways or needs to be changed, he's going to look at the drummer first. He or she is
mm,
going to look at the drummer first. I always say that the conductor is a conduit between what's going on stage and what's going on in the pit, and you as the drummer aren't privy to that. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
he or she is giving you information. And so one of the things I think to be successful in this genre is you actually have to give up a little bit of control. You have to give up a little bit of timekeeping control, a little bit of everything. In that, if something needs to be changed, the conductor's looking at you, and you two are gonna work that out. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And there are some drummers that I know who have gotten into this, and they either don't know that they have to do that, or they're not willing to do it. It's like, no, we rehearsed this at quarter note equals 120, and now he's trying to go at 116. Well, no, I'm gonna, well, you
Right.
don't know that maybe a set piece is coming in and it's going to hit somebody, or that the person who is the understudy for the star suddenly had to go on and they don't like to do the song that fast. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
having that on its very most simple level, it's awareness, right?
Hmm.
Is having your head up and in the game. And going back to what you were saying about Harvey Mason, is when I'm setting up in the pit, sometimes this doesn't happen nowadays, because sometimes because the audio systems are so good and the video systems are so good, sometimes I'm set up in a completely different room, sometimes a completely different building than the
Hmm.
conductor, right? But
That's
if I
weird.
have
Yeah.
my druthers, I want to be as close, physically close, with the conductor right above my music stand, so that
Right.
I can see body. When you're going back to where is B2, right? I can hear their intake, literally the intake of their breath on the downbeat, right? That gives me a clue. Their body language gives me a clue, right? But it really comes back to having your head in the game, paying attention, being present, right? And because I can't tell you how many drummers I know have been pushed out of this work just because they don't pay attention. Or
Uh,
I was, like, you see, they're trying to get the drummer's attention. So
mhm.
that's a huge part of it.
I got a nice theater run once with a great show because the drummer, who was a friend of mine and a wonderful drummer, didn't have that mindset. He was like, well, the part says double time. That's not double time.
Yeah,
Well, the rule is the conductor's always right. Because as you said, you don't know what he's dealing with, man. He's looking, if
exactly.
fifth F is a little, three clicks too fast, the dancers are falling all over each other.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
they're trying to spit out a little bit, but the lyrics won't come out because it's too fast.
yeah.
Or it's too slow and they can't hold that note that long. Or on and on and on. But that's a simpatico thing that happens between the conductor and the drummer, especially.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really unique relationship. And you start to, one of the reasons I think that I was able to do that long run on the road was that I built those relationships with those conductors, so that they knew, of course, I would come in and play the notes, right? Of course. But one of my big things really is that I want to teach, my young students, is it's really about all of the other stuff, right? Showing up on time, being prepared, having a great attitude, being flexible, right? You've always got to leave room for improvisation. One of my big things, is what I call arts and crafts, right? I refer to it that way. And I have in my, I have carry a separate bag than my stick bag, and this is specifically for doing shows. And it has highlighters, scotch tape, post-its, scissors, this 3M labeling cover-up tape. Because what happens, if we go back to something else you were talking about the process of it, Michael? Basically, if you get a show as a drummer, you're coming in early and you're going to be working with the choreographer and the director and maybe the musical director, maybe just a piano player for a good 2 or 3 weeks before the rest of the band gets there. And that's when they're building the show. Even if it's something like Hello Dolly that's been done a million times, they still want to put their own stamp on it. So they're going to shorten this number, they're going to lengthen this, they're going to put this in there, you know. So you're going to be doing a lot of note taking, a lot of experimentation, right? And I know that one of the reasons that I've been able to keep this job is, one, again, it's awareness. I know that that is a thing that happens. And then I have my whole bag of arts and crafts. I'm prepared, right? Because one of the main things I want to do is, well, is remove ambiguity from the book, right? And now this goes along with sight reading, right? Of course, if you want to have any sort of sustained career within this thing, you've really got to get your sight reading together, right? It's a mandatory, because you're going to be handed things at the last minute. Sometimes I just did a gig at they just built this beautiful cabaret theater underneath the jazz club Birdland in New York. And they do some jazz down there, but it's mostly Broadway style cabaret evenings. And I was playing in there, and we had been doing the show for a while. So we had our music and it was all hunky dory. And about 5 minutes before this was just a couple of months ago, 5 minutes before we're going to go on, the singer said, "Oh, I'd like to do this song, that, you know, this new song. I want to put it in." And the piano player's like, "Oh, I don't have a drum chart for that." So now I'm reading off piano charts, right? But I had all of my stuff. I was able to get it all together and work it out and tape it out and put the correction tape here and do it all. So, you know,
Well, let's talk
that
about
stuff.
reading off of piano charts,
Yeah,
because
that's a
well, you know, and we all know that you could put a line in a drum part and say 16, and that means 16 bars of time, right?
right.
And it's one line. But in a piano score, there's like 4 bars to a page or
Yeah.
something.
You're just doing this on it, just turning
And you're
pages.
just flipping
Yeah.
pages, and you went through 18
Actually,
16 bars is all it was.
people think I'm joking when I say this, but it really is a skill. You start to develop this skill of being kind of able to play with one hand while you're turning pages, you know, the ambidextrousness that you have to develop, you know, to do that.
Let
But
me address that too, because this is a pet peeve
yeah,
of mine. When you sit at the drum set, I'm getting some interference, but it keeps going away. When you sit at the drum set and you want to have the conduct, I mean, we naturally don't face the way the bass drum faces. We straddle the snare drum. We face like to the
right,
left side, right. Well, that's where the conductor needs to be, and that's where the music needs to be, right?
right.
And we need to be able to
I,
use our left hand, if you're a right-handed drummer, to move music around
yeah,
while you're taking care of business. I see all
yeah.
the time guys have the music somewhere else.
Yeah.
That
One of the things that
won't
I
work in a pit.
do is, well, and I do this anyway, is show up early, right? You know, if the downbeat's at 1, I'm getting there at like 11:30, right? Because I've got to haul my drums in through the kitchen, and you know what I mean? But also, very importantly, addressing what you just said, Michael, is I want to claim my space,
Right.
right? I want to get in there. Not only do I want to have enough room to set up before the horns and the strings and the bass and the 3 keyboards and the 27 amps get in there, but also exactly what you just said. I literally want to have my music stand here. And if that means offsetting the drum set at an angle, who cares? As long
Exactly.
as I'm looking at my music and directly above my music is the conductor, right? So I'm always fighting for that. Now, if that also means that I've got to put the stand over here, I've literally practiced. You know, it was very uncomfortable and I hated it, right? But I
Hmm.
practiced that anxiety out of it. I would literally practice putting the music stand over here in case that was the only way that I could set up.
There
But
are some
if I
cases like
do
that,
have,
yes.
yeah, if I do
Yeah.
have an option, I'm always trying to get the stand right there.
Okay, so if I'm a young Adam, jump in anytime you want.
Well, I'm agreeing with everything that Aaron is saying. This is
Me
all
too.
very logical, and you have to be pragmatic and play what the situation is. And the reality I find is, whatever the situation is, you've got to pay attention all the time. You just can't be going into automatic pilot.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always make the analogy, it's like driving the car. You just can't be looking straight ahead. You got to be checking your speed. You got to be looking in the mirror. You got a lot of factors you got to think about, but you don't want to be thinking about it. You just
Yeah.
want that to be automatic, like a
Yeah.
reflex, because
Yeah.
once you're thinking, you're getting out of the now of what
Yeah.
has to be done. So all the stuff you're saying has to become a competence level that's unconsciously done.
Yeah. It's second nature and it's
Yeah.
situational awareness. And I really,
Good term.
people,
That's a term. That's absolutely correct. Situationally aware.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
One,
that
my,
applies to everything. Jazz
You bet.
trio,
oh
every
yeah.
free, straight
All music,
ahead, every
symphony
music you're going to
playing,
play.
everything,
Appears
everything.
to walking across the street. I mean, come on. This applies to just life in general. You better
Yeah.
be aware of what's happening.
Yeah, we're on vacation here up in Nantucket, and we're out in the woods, and so we got to drive back and forth, and it's just deers everywhere. And we literally got in
Oh,
the car last night. Okay, situational awareness. Where are we? But one of the things that I joke
don't hit
about,
a
and
deer.
people kind of make fun about is, one of the things I say to my young students is, if you can show up with a pencil, you got 45% of the show gig thing, because things are going to change all the time. And now let's get, and people say, oh man, you're getting too detailed. I'm like, no, the devil is in the
Mm-mm-mm.
detail, because
This
if
is what I
that
wanted from you.
cowbell,
Yeah.
yeah, if that cowbell is on beat 3, the conductor only wants to tell you that one time. They should only have to tell you that one time, right?
Right.
So I will
Right.
go in and mark it. And the other thing too is there's this 3M labeling cover-up tape. It's a white strip of paper. It's beautiful for any. This applies to shows if you have any music. And what I want to do again is remove ambiguity. So if I'm sight reading and it's coming up and I look ahead and I see a scribbled out crash on 1 and a scribbled out crash on 3 and a circle around 2, and I'm like, oh, and then it's already gone. I've already missed it. I've already made the mistake, and I'm getting yelled at, right? So if I can put that tape down, clearly put quarter note rest, crash on 3, quarter note rest, it's done. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, I know that there are hundreds of, I live in Manhattan, thousands of drummers who could play all the gigs I play equally as well, if not better than me. But I've been able to maintain because I do all of this other stuff, right? I pay attention. I'm in the moment. If they tell me to play the cowbell on the end of 4, I put the cowbell on the end of 4. You know what I mean? It's all of that little stuff sometimes that people are like, yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it. Oh, okay,
Right.
then they don't get called back, you
Right.
know.
Now, let me ask you about, I know in Broadway, once the show opens and gets on its feet, you can sub out as much as half the time, which is how guys can stay on a gig for 8 years, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I,
And
yeah.
how about on the touring company?
It's a little different on tours. It really depends on how long the tour is out. I've never actually subbed on a tour that I've done. I've subbed. I've gone in and subbed for other people, but
Hmm.
tours that I've been on, I've never had somebody come in for me. Now, luckily, also no, but none of my relatives passed. I didn't get some get hit by a bus or something. Knock wood,
Right.
because that happens sometimes. But if a show like the last big producers tour was almost 2 years, so that drummer built into his thing. He's like, listen, I just need, I got to take some, just for my mental
You
health.
can't do
I
eight
need a
shows a
couple
week
of,
for 2 years.
yeah, that's a long time. So you would build those weeks
Hmm.
in advance. That you would let them know in advance. Okay, in January I'm going to take the 3rd week off, and then they would usually bring somebody in who had played the show before. But I've had the situation myself where well, let's back up just a little bit. So, like you were saying at the beginning, Michael, these shows go out and they play in big regional theaters. And then there's 2 levels basically of national tours. There's the first level, which is called a bus and truck, and that is the equipment's on the trucks and the cast and the band are on a bus, and they're usually playing kind of second tier cities like Tuscaloosa or Fargo or Orange, Texas, places like that. And they usually are playing split weeks or one nighters. And then the next level up would be a national tour where you're doing Miami, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco. You're doing at least a week stay, 2 or 3 or 4 week stays. You're staying in a hotel, you're flying from city to city. But I also get work sometimes doing these shows in big regional theaters. And there was a buddy of mine playing a show, and he had been trying to get on another tour for years, literally years. And they finally called him, and he said, I got to go. This is Friday.
Right.
I fly down there, get there Sunday, watch him play the show Sunday night, have a little meeting with the conductor on Tuesday afternoon, and then play the show Tuesday night. So that can happen sometimes. Now, it was 42nd Street, which is a show that I had heard for years, just in the sort of American songbook way. And I had played a few times, but I'm still sight reading it. But all of the skills that I built up to this point, help me be able to do that.
One thing that's really hard about subbing is you don't know where anything is.
Well, subbing is really, really tough.
You're hitting that cowbell, but that's not where it is. It's over here.
Yeah. And you can't see from me sitting down, but I'm 6'6". So I'm a little taller than the majority of drummers. The other part with subbing is that you never get to play your own drums, right? You're practicing it on your own drums, So, but subbing is tough. We could do a whole nother a thing on subbing. The one piece of advice I would give is when you are subbing, especially in a show context, you are playing that drummer's show. You're not coming in to put your stamp on it, right? The greatest compliment I ever got was I was subbing on an off-Broadway show, and there was a separator between myself and the trumpet player who I knew, but I didn't see. I came in at the last minute, played the show. He walked around the separator, said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just played the show." He said, "I didn't even know we had a sub tonight." That was the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
Like if he would have said, "Oh man, you sounded like Buddy over there," or Neil Peart, that would not have been a compliment to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
The fact that he said, "I didn't even know you were there," was the greatest compliment he could pay me. Yeah.
Took care of business.
When I'm playing with good people, sometimes they're so in there you don't even notice them.
It is this weird, it is this weird thing where you're playing the drums and they're very loud and percussive, but you almost are sort of hidden. You're blended into the, you're sort of it's like a Zen cone. You're seen but not seen.
I always
In
tell
the
that
fabric.
I always tell that to Jamie Haddad. He's a wonderful percussionist. Worked with Paul Simon a lot, and I heard him several times on that band. And I said, Jamie, I don't know you're there until I do. Then it's fabulous. Then I don't know you're gone.
Yeah.
Then I don't know you're there. I mean, he comes in and out with the right music at the right time, and it just fits so well. It's seamless. It's just seamless.
I just had an experience like that a couple of months ago. I went to see James Taylor, and the band's coming out, and it's Jimmy Johnson and Louis Conti, the same guys that have been playing with him for years. But and the drummer comes out, and I'm like, wow. In 1,000 years, I wouldn't think that drummer would play that gig. It was Chad Wackerman.
Oh, yeah.
And he destroyed it. He killed it. He was so great. Again, exactly what you said. He just disappeared into the music, played exactly nothing more. There were like maybe one or two or three bar sections over the course of the evening where he played Pat Boone, Debbie Boone, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't think he played a 32nd note or 16th note the whole night, but it was just beautiful.
I have a Chad Wackerman story. I had just moved to Los Angeles, and a friend of mine was playing trombone in Bill Watrous' band at Dante's. So why don't you come out and hear us? So I did, and I get there. I'm just in L.A. for like 3 days, and the drummer is Chad Wackerman, and he's like 17.
Wow.
And just killed it, man. And this is the first drummer I've heard in LA. I was like 25, and I'm like, man, I'm ready to go home. I got to turn around and go home.
That's great.
But I stuck it out. But, man, he was a monster as a kid.
Yeah.
A lot of talent there. A lot of talent in that family, from what I understand.
Family. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him do a clinic here. He was great. But go on. I mean, I don't feel like you're rolling, man. I don't. You don't need my question.
No, I would. one of the other things when we're doing the national tours um, is the bus and truck tours are usually self-contained, right? So
Hmm.
the whole band travels as one unit, right? It's everybody moving through the whole tour. Whereas on the national tours, there's usually a core group. So it's usually the conductor,
Right.
always the conductor, of course.
And they pick up the
The
local guys. Yeah.
Right. So there's an assistant conductor who plays keys, and then myself, and then maybe a lead trumpet. Maybe I did a long tour of this Barry Manilow Copacabana tour, and that was such a heavy Latin thing that they thought, well, let us, we'll bring our own percussionist for that, and then
Hmm.
you pick up the horn section, the reeds, the strings, the extra keyboards, and you fly into town on Monday. And then Tuesday morning, there's like a 5 hour rehearsal where we just run the whole book. And there's obviously a contractor in that city who knows the guys who play this work and can sight read very well. And those are the guys who get anytime I say guys, I mean men and women, of
Of
course,
course.
who get those calls.
And also the ones who
And
were available for that gig.
thank you very much. Yes, of course. Because sometimes you get into a middling city and you get a rough player, and it's like, okay, are we going to fire the best horn player in East Lansing? That means we got to get the second best horn player in
Right.
East Lansing. You know what I mean? So sometimes those chairs aren't very deep, which we'll get back to.
One time Harold Jones was in town with Natalie Cole, and he came into my gig afterwards, and I said, and it was a whole orchestra thing. I said, was the band local? And he said, very. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, I've been there. I've
Yeah.
been there. Yeah.
That's when they
Owie!
say circle that part. Tell them what it
Yeah.
means when they say circle that part.
Well, okay. Circling on in the show context means take it out,
Right.
right? And sometimes, you'll just have a player who can't handle something, and so we'll play that on keyboards.
Hmm.
But there's one city, and I can't remember where it is. I think it might be Roanoke, or somewhere where we got there, and because by this point in the tour, we had hit a bunch of cities, right? We were like, almost a year in,
Hmm.
and we start playing the rehearsal, and we're hearing all of these parts, like loud, right? Like really loud parts we
Oh.
haven't heard for a year. And the conductor says, "What are you guys doing? All that circled?" And they're like, "Oh, in this city, circle means play it louder." So, like, well, no, just
It's
take that
like
stuff
in New York,
out.
this is three flats, right? And in LA,
Yeah, that whole system.
this is three flats.
Yeah.
And in LA,
So,
and in Nashville, it's a whole number system. Yeah.
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
saw Tacit and he thought it said take it.
Take it.
It says right there, take it, man. I'm taking it. Drum solo now. And you
DC,
don't want to be the guy that when they say circle it, you don't want to be that person.
Yeah, especially if nobody's, you don't want to step into that hole, as we say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then so you'd have the rehearsal, and then you'd have a 2 hour, 1.5 hour sound check, and then you play the show that night. So it's and as the drummer, one of the skills that you have to develop, and this just become, Adam, you put it beautifully, it becomes subconscious, right? You don't even think about it, is that I know where the tempos are supposed to be, right? But what happens is when we hit that rehearsal, and I'm only one person, right? And when 18 people, so wherever it go, right, we start playing right there, and then they all look down and start reading, and it's da ba 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 ba
Mm.
da, right? So I've got to really stand up on that tempo and get right in the middle of that quarter note, right? And without pushing, without rushing, without pushing the tempo ahead, right? Which is a tricky, and with 18 people, it becomes this tricky thing. But it's this muscle that you develop after a while. You know what I mean? And again, it's awareness. It's even being aware that they're reading, being aware that they're dragging. You know what I mean? So and also as a show player, one of the things that I work with my students is what I call tempo memory, right? Of course, we work on time, just your general time playing and all of that. Of course, that's the foundation. but this very specific skill of tempo memory, because a lot of times in a show, we'll be going along like this, and then immediately on the downbeat, it doesn't accelerando or slow down. It immediately goes into a doom, goes right into a new tempo, right? So can you memorize where that tempo is, right? And that goes back to your thing with Harvey Mason, right? Because the conductor's just going to do it, right? But it's a team effort, especially with the drummer, right? Again, the third viola players, all due respect to them, but it's really you and the conductor are going to establish that new tempo right on the downbeat, right? So it's a matter of memorizing. I'm sure, Adam, with your gigs too, you start playing with somebody and they're like, I like this tune here, I like this tune here, I like this tune here. And so you've got to develop that.
You have to be firm yet flexible according to the situation. Because like you said, you may have to give them a little or you may have to kind of, pull back the reins a little bit, or it all depends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, let me get a spot or two in here and think about anything else you want to talk about. We'll wrap this up in a minute. Let me do these.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.
Hey everybody out there in cyber world, this is Adam Nussbaum.
Hi, Dave DeCenzo here.
Hi, Bermuda Schwartz here.
Hey everyone, Stanton Moore here.
Hey guys, Johnson Pesta here.
Hey everybody, this is John J.R. Robinson.
Hi, Todd Zuckerman here for the Drum Center of Portsmouth. They're knowledgeable, they'll be able to help you and guide you and make the right choices for you and the music that you play.
From Wingnut to Wuhan, these chaps know what they're talking about. Highly recommend. But what do I know? I'm a drummer.
Where do we begin?
What does he know? He's a drummer.
Yeah, I'm
He's
looking
a good
at that
friend.
and
We all love him.
I'm looking at that going, what am I doing here?
Every now and
We
then
all spin the web a different way. And amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Every
It's
now
an
and then I
honor.
have delusions of adequacy.
You have a great future behind you.
That's right. Another nuss bomb, an A-bomb.
I'll just drop this little shorty on you. This past week was Zildjian's 400th anniversary event in Boston. And what was so great was it brought together so many drummers from the community. And it was just a big love fest. Everybody was happy to be there. We have this common bond, no ego nonsense. And, that wouldn't be happening with guitar players or trumpet players.
That's exactly right.
It was just wonderful to feel this positive energy. And I keep thinking of those great lines that Art Blakey would say, we can make you, we can break you. The punishment can fit the crime, And it's that thing that we have, because we all know that the quickest way to change the band sound is change the drums.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because in all the different aspects of what we do, there's common things that have to be taken care of. Taking care of the band, helping them sound good. It's not about us. It's about them and what the music is and what has to be done, and having the discipline for that and the commitment to that intention, which is necessary. And we hear that with all the greats, whether they're burning out or playing a ballad. There's a commitment that has to be understood. And that's why, Aaron, you've been successful in what you do. You're committed to that process. And you have to understand the parameters of every situation. And, that's why, thank goodness we're still doing it. And the phone still goes ding-a-ling.
Yeah. Very thankful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
thankful.
I think in any
Yeah.
style, whatever kind of music you play, if you can make a living at it for your whole life, you've got it made, man. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
No
You
problem
call
say
this
that,
a
Dave.
living?
Ah, it's a living.
Ish. Ish.
That's the butt of a thousand jokes, I guess.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
Anything else you want to throw into this mix, Aaron? You've been
Yeah,
terrific.
I would say, if there are young people who have never done this before, just a couple of more things I would suggest would be really steep yourself in the American songbook. I can't tell you how many times that has saved me. I was last year I was on a cabaret gig, and again the singer said, "I want to add a couple of this is literally 5 minutes before we go on. I want to add a couple of tunes." And the piano player's like, "I don't even have piano charts to give you. You're just going to have to fake it." Right. And one of them was The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha. No
Mm-hmm.
problem. I got it. I've heard that song 1,000 times,
Mm-hmm.
and I just made it work. Another one was Cool from West Side Story. Again, a song I've heard 1,000 times. I made it work. And I think that, that transfers over. I'm sure, Adam, that's happened to you as well, and Michael as well. 1,000 times where, it's a song that you only know because you've done your homework, and also you love music. It's not a chore to listen to West Side Story. You know
Right.
what I mean? I
It's
Well, it
love it.
just
you
happened to me
have
this. I'm sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It just happened to me this weekend. I had a Sinatra tribute performance, whatever you want to call it, on a Friday and a Saturday. It was a different Sinatra each night. And I was the leader, and I had to kick off every song. Well, I knew those tempos because I knew that music.
Yeah.
Simple
You
as
know,
that.
the thing, it's important. What you're saying here is necessary to be aware of the subject.
Yeah.
It's not just the instrument, it's the
Yeah.
subject.
Yeah.
I was just driving across country. I went to visit my daughter in Spokane, and I got serious in the car. I'm
Yeah.
listening to the 40s channel, I'm
Yeah.
listening to the Sinatra channel, and 95% of these songs, I'm singing along with them
Yeah.
because they're just in there.
Yeah.
And you have to understand the subject of what it is you're trying to do. If you want to do something, you need to get it in there, not up here, but
I
way
hope
in
the
there.
kids know that because
They have to.
Now,
Somebody
these
has
weren't-
to tell them.
These weren't musicians, but I was hanging at my gig the other night, and the music is playing in the background. And there's, bartender, waitresses. They're in their 20s, maybe early 30s. I said, "You know who this is?" And no. So well, that's Ray Charles. Oh, okay. And then Bing Crosby came on. You never heard of Ray Charles? Bing Crosby came on. I said, "Now I wouldn't expect you to know this because this is even before Frank Sinatra, but that is Bing Crosby, and you probably will know him as the star in one of the stars in the movie White Christmas." Well, they had never heard of either.
Yeah. Well,
Never
that's
heard of
why
White
you need to
Christmas.
have a teacher. That's why you need, or as I would say, particularly now, because there is maybe there is an overabundance of too much information out there. You need a tour guide.
Yeah.
Because with the social media right now, there is so much, and a lot of it is more style than substance. So you need somebody to steer you in the right direction. And
that's a great way
very
to
good
put
point. Good point.
it's necessary because
it.
we used to listen to one thing 1,000 times. Now the kids will listen to 1,000 things once, and it's never in there. It's like, it's like playing something. Do you want to play at it, or do you want to play it? Do you want to get on it, or do you want to get in it? These are things that are necessary to understand to give what you do a sense of substance. And it's a really different time now. But in order to understand what you're doing or what I'm doing or whatever, you need to immerse yourself in there. Immersion. And
total immersion. Yeah.
I'm just I stop, this past few weeks I've been very reflective about things. It was Sonny Rollins' birthday, Wilbur Ware's birthday, Elvin Jones' birthday, September 7, 8, 9. there was this Zildjian thing that just went on. I had my 50th high school reunion. So I've been just thinking about all this stuff. And it's like, how did this all happen? I'm still feeling like the kid. But
Yeah.
that's, I'm in
Yeah.
the third now. And I'm just feel like I'm beginning to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. It's a,
Yeah,
it's a
That's how I'm feeling.
fascinating, it's
I'm
a
starting to wonder
fascinating.
how many gigs we have left. You start thinking those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah.
And just keep going,
I
keep doing what we do.
yeah. I think you're right, Adam. That thing of having a guide. I was lucky enough to have a bunch when I was coming up,
Me
and
too.
that's something that I try to do. And it's not. There's no shame because I've had a couple of students who have expressed a desire to do this, and then I go into my thing. I give them. I express. You got to listen to this, and really get into this, and they go, no, that's not for me, and they move on to something else. And hey, more power to them. You know what I mean?
It's not
Okay.
supposed to be work.
Right.
I mean, isn't that why we started to do this in the first place? Out of a
Yeah.
love and a joy to play,
They call it
play.
They call it playing, don't they?
Yeah, there's a reason. It's like if I'm in a situation and I have to be working, somebody's jerking.
There's another A-bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is true. I mean, how
Absolutely.
easy is it to play
That's what
when
makes
you're
your
playing
A-bombs
with
so
good?
good. They're true.
when everybody's focused on the task at hand,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
easy and it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what we do. We're getting on planes, trains, buses. For me, everything is the work till I get
Yeah.
to the job. Then I get
Yeah.
to play.
That's to one of my great teachers was my mother, who led a life in the arts,
Yeah.
made a living as a show person. And one of the things that, her biggest thing and that I always remember is we were standing at a theater in Pittsburgh and I was doing a show and she said, and she was pointing at the stage door and there was a crowd of people around the stage door, people looking for autographs who had seen the show. And she said, you got to go in that door, right? You get to go in there. Those people want so badly to go in there and be doing what you're doing. So she really instilled in me this incredible sense of gratitude. And I think that has served me very well.
Amen. Yeah, and your mother must have been proud of you. Is she still with you?
She passed recently, but she got an opportunity to see me do a lot of things, and I got an opportunity to work with her a lot. So to share that stage with her, and so that was a thrill.
That's
absolutely
sweet.
a thrill. Yeah, yeah.
One time, the Lincoln Center band was here with Wynton Marsalis, and my wife said, "Why don't you bring my mother?" Because she was visiting, and so I was delighted to do so. But they had so many guests in the band that they put us on the stage. We were surrounding the band on the stage. And at the end, of course, there's standing ovations and stuff. And I was thinking, my mother-in-law got to see that. People don't get to see that. They don't get to be on the receiving end of a standing ovation in a room full of 800 people.
Yeah.
And she got to see that love from the stage, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, when people ask me what was the moment, and I'm sure both of you have an answer to this situation. Every musician probably does. When people have asked me what was the moment that you knew, because this can be a hard life, man. It can be a hard struggle.
But we all have an answer, don't we? We all have an answer.
Yeah, and mine was it was sixth grade, junior high school. It was one of these like kind of show in a box type of situations. And they gave me the little drum score and I was back behind the riser because they got to get all the kids in, right? So they put, everybody in the school on the riser in the choir, right? So I'm back there in this little dark tunnel and we play the show. And the piano player is on the stage, our music teacher, and I can see her through this little tunnel. And the show ends and people are clapping and she turns and she goes like this. And I walk through that tunnel out onto the stage and the lights, and I was like, yes, please. Yes, thank you. I want to keep doing this, And it wasn't the adulation. It was that experience of, the joy of making. Here's the greatest thing that I am thankful for. And it's not the amazing, the fact that I've been able to make a living all these years. That's wonderful. The incredible thing that I'm thankful for is the opportunity to make music with the incredible musicians that I've gotten to make music. I just thought of one of my favorite musical stories, which is a buddy of mine. I'm not even going to, all names change to protect the innocent, but he got the opportunity to play with Peter Frampton to audition. And word got out in his town, he lives in a big town, that he was auditioning. And a bunch of drummers came up to him and they're like, oh man, that's going to be rough. Peter Frampton, he's really rough on drummers. And first of all, he's like, why are you telling me this?
Yeah,
he's
right.
like, I'm already nervous enough. Then you got to layer this extra layer of anxiety on top of it. And he came a couple of days later, he had this realization. He came up with this great line that I repeat all the time, which is, I'm not going to let Peter Frampton get in the way of me making music with Peter Frampton, which I thought was such a self-aware, beautiful musical thing. He's like, I want that experience. I want to be on stage with those incredible musicians. And if it means getting yelled at, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing too. I always, I even wrote down here in my notes that you really do have to develop a tough skin in this business, because you're going to, as the drummer, and sometimes you're going to get yelled. I tell my students this all the time. Sometimes you as the drummer, it's the hot seat. You're going to get yelled at for stuff that you didn't do. You know what I mean? It's just, you're the big target and you're going to get yelled at. And you've got to be able to get over that hump. That's a big hump in a lot of musicians' careers. They have that first bad night and they're like, I'm out. And okay, great. That's fine. But I had a bunch of those early, and I woke up the next morning and I'm like, okay, I'm still alive. I made it through that. I didn't get fired. All right. I got my butt handed to me, but I didn't get fired. I got the gig still tonight. Okay, I can do this. You know what I mean? So
That's right.
that's one of the things I really tell my students is you've got to, and you know what the salve to that burn is? Gratitude. Gratitude is the medicine that cures that hurt of getting your butt handed to you.
That's excellent. It's a good space, good spot to wrap it up. And
also bring a pencil. Don't forget your pencils. Don't be that one guy who's like, hey man, got a pencil. You got an extra pencil.
And an eraser.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually a mechanical pencil. Because if you have a regular number 2 pencil and it breaks, first of all, most guys can't even get it together to bring a pencil, let alone a sharpener. Are you kidding me? Right? So if I break this mechanical pencil,
it's been in the bottom of my symbol bag for 3 years and it doesn't have anything in it. Aaron Russell is the gentleman in the middle here, and we sure appreciate your profound experience and advice.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a
words of wisdom. Words of wisdom.
This was a thrill.
Amplified and echoed by my wonderful partner in crime here, Adam Nussbaum. So I don't know if we made it all on Facebook or not. The whole show will be posted. I'll send you guys links, and please look for it everywhere you can. I'm going to run one more spot and get us out of here, okay?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everyone.
I appreciate
Maybe
it. Thanks,
I won't
Adam.
do the same one twice here. Yeah, let's do this one.
Hi, I'm Stan Chiawa, and welcome to the Professional Drum Shop. 1959 it opened up. Here we have Buddy Rich's, the last set he ever played. Last gig he played with Mel Torme at the Palladium. I set it up for him. One of the most iconic pictures is this one. Joe Morello Clinic around 1963. Mr. Hal Blaine, good friends of the store for decades.
The stories that go on, I mean, if these walls could talk, holy mackerel, we'd all go to jail.